Hi, UCP. I'm here with Igor Glenn. Many of you have had the pleasure to work with him. And the first question I want to ask him today is what instrument or instruments does he play?
Well, Mary, I play a lot of instruments, primarily string bass, but over the years I've played a lot of different kinds of music with different kinds of ensembles. So I played guitar pretty early on, back in my native Alabama, uh, where everybody played guitar back when before guitar was so universally popular. So I played guitar, then at some point along the way I picked up mandolin and banjo and ukulele, and then a composite instrument called a banjo ukulele, which lately has become kind of a musical instrument of choice for me because it's so portable, and I use it when I'm doing sing-alongs as Santa Claus, which is, as you can see by the red shirt, that tends to be what I do. Matter of fact, it's a T-shirt. It looks like this. Ho,
Wow.
ho, ho.
I didn't know
Of
that you
course.
did that. I didn't know that that was something else that you did.
Yeah, I'm one of the only performing Santa Clauses. I go to private parties mostly. Sometimes I will do a public concert, but I do a lot of sing-alongs that are associated with the holiday season, and then I do some original songs that I've written about Santa Claus and about the season. Or this, I did a solstice song called "Farewell to the Longest Night." So, and I draw on my background not only from starting as an a cappella gospel singer when I was 5 years old down in my native Alabama, all the way to when I got a scholarship at ASU. And I was the principal string bassist in the ASU Symphony.
Wow. So you've had kind of a very varied education with your different instruments. Like how did you learn it? Was it a lot of it teaching yourself and then all of a sudden you went to university too. So you've had kind of
Well,
all parts.
uh, Mary, I'm about 90% self-taught, actually. Um, when I got the scholarship at ASU, and I had really never had any bass instruction. My father bought me a bass when I was 16 years old, and I bought a bow and learned how to read the music for the bass, and I kind of took it from there. Really, I wouldn't say that I'm exactly a classical soloist, but I learned to read enough to play orchestral parts, which is the important thing in a symphony. But bass players don't get to solo much in an orchestra, like piano and harp and some of those other instruments. You're pretty much part of a section of generally 4 to 8 bass players. But I really prefer folk music, which means that I get to play when I play bass or any of the other instruments, that I'm not bounded by any particular written out music. Although since I got a lot of classical training to get a degree in music, I do know theory quite well. Uh, and I use it a lot when I'm writing songs because I understand how chord progressions work and how to do variations on the melody, et cetera, et cetera. And a little bit on writing out parts too. So it's been a varied career, but very community minded. That's what I like about folk music. It involves people, not just a performance, but to sing alongs. I love to do those and hear other people's voices. But that's what I grew up on in a cappella singing, gospel music down in Alabama.
Wow, I didn't know that you were from Alabama. I'm from Alabama too.
I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. I'm going to Louisiana, my true love for to see. And so as a kid, you'll find this interesting. I learned to sing all of the parts, from the low parts to the high parts. And I didn't know that you weren't supposed to be able to sing all the parts. But it was shape note singing from a hymnal in the deep south, and I learned to sing the soprano part, the alto part, tenor part, and the bass part. So I had all the parts covered. So what that meant is when I started doing cowboy music and mariachi music, I was able to employ falsetto. In mariachi music, it's like, "Ay, malagueño rosa, besar tus labios quisiera. Ay, malagueño." And then when I started doing cowboy music, when I came out west to Arizona, you have to be able to yodel. So I learned to yodel. Oh, the cowboy couldn't yodel. Oh, la lady, 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 oh, la lady.
Wow. So that's so funny. So sometimes maybe it's good not to know what the rules are so that you're not constrained by them, and then you developed all of these different skills because you didn't know what you were quote unquote supposed to be
That,
singing.
that that's a very good point because I performed one time as a folk singer and I was employing all of my range, and this guy was kept staring at me. And after when I took a break, he came up and he said, "How did you learn to sing like that?" I said, "I've never had voice lessons." He said, "Well, that explains that." Says, "I'm a voice teacher. You're not supposed to do what you're doing."
Uh-huh. Wow.
Don't stop, because some voice teachers will tell you, "Oh, don't sing falsetto; it'll wreck your voice," which is patently ridiculous. Actually, it's a very good warm up.
So I'm
Oh,
wondering, like, what venues have you played in? Like, where have you done your mariachi, and where have you done your yodeling, and where is Santa Claus, and where have you done everything?
where does it? How did I stumble onto all of this? Well,
Yes.
I kind of stumbled onto that scholarship when I came to Arizona. I was working with Dolan Ellis, who's the state's official state balladeer for Arizona. And we worked at a little coffee house in Scottsdale. Those coffee houses and folk singers and coffee houses were a popular thing in the 60s and 70s. And there was a mariachi group playing at a Mexican restaurant next door. So I used to go over and listen to the mariachis. And so I learned half a dozen mariachi songs just to add it to my repertoire. And, they all added falsetto because they like, ay, 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 ay. That's characteristic of the enthusiasm of mariachi singing. Uh, and then for the cowboy stuff, I just kind of picked that up on my own. And then one year, uh, when the National Western Music Association was based out of Tucson, I competed and won as part of a yodeling duo the championship for that year. So, and they call it a world championship. I don't know what that means exactly. It was only Tucson, but there were people from all over the country came there and for the competition. So that's my one yodeling claim to fame is somewhere I have a certificate that said champion yodeler. And then fast forward to another experience that I had. I played on some cruise ships, including the one up the Mississippi River. And when we were going up the Mississippi, they gave everybody a chance to try out the calliope. And if you ever get a chance to do that, that is really fun. So I'm on top side of this stern wheeler um, and cruising down the Mississippi River. The thing that's tricky is when you press a key down, it takes a couple of seconds before you hear the sound. It takes that for the steam to build up enough head to sound the note. So I picked a slow song, so I wouldn't get off of my timing. And I played Old Man River on the calliope, and then I got a certificate in my here again in my nostalgia file that says that I'm officially qualified to play calliope on, and it lists about 2 dozen rivers around the United States.
So I don't know what calliope is
Oh, I
really.
was
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
enlightened. A calliope is a steam operated pipe organ. And on steamboats, it was easy just to run a line from the steam boiler, steam chest, um, and it's extremely loud. And that's why it's on the top of the ship, and you can hear it for miles, especially on the river. And it was a happy kind of sound. And they're land-based calliopes that were popular with circuses when they toured the U.S. They were usually on a wagon, and you here again had a boiler, and you heated up the steam, and the pressure from the steam went through the tubes, and it helped advertise the circus in town, and especially when they did a parade down Main Street. because you could hear the calliope coming, you could hear the circus parade coming with the elephants and the ponies and all the razzle dazzle that goes with the circus, had a musical counterpart in the calliope. And I should mention that I am a docent at the Musical Instrument Museum, and they have a small calliope. It's indoors, so they don't usually play it, but a small calliope um, where you can see one up close. And I would encourage everybody to go to the Musical Instrument Museum. If you don't know about it, it's a world-class museum that was founded almost 10 years ago in Scottsdale. And they have thousands of instruments on display and video screens explaining the instruments that you're looking at. So it's a marvelous experience. And I volunteer there mostly for a thing called the Experience Gallery, where people are free. The rest of the museum is don't touch. The Experience Gallery is you come in and you can touch everything. You can try out drums, you can try out banjos, try out guitars, try out ukuleles. Um, so it and the food there is great too. I should mention that their lunch is fabulous. It's gourmet food, so you get a total experience. Bring the whole family. The Musical Instrument Museum in Scottsdale, Arizona.
We'll all have to
It
write
was
that
founded by
one
Bob
down.
Ulrich, who was the founder and retired from Target department stores. So he's the one that got it started. A little background on that too. Bob Ulrich was a fan of museums, so as he traveled around the world, he went to museums, mostly art museums, and he was going to donate a painting, put up the money to donate a painting to an art museum, and his friend said, "Bob, for the price of that, you can have your own musical museum." And so Bob thought about it. He had been to some musical museums, and he thought, "Well, that's an idea." So he put up the initial money, and um, it got a very fast track because it didn't have to go through a lot of grant processes. And in fairly short order, uh, we had the Musical Instrument Museum.
Wow, I didn't know the history of it, and that's so.
Have you been to the museum?
So I have not, which is actually a shame
I,
to
I
say.
can give you a free tour because I'm a guide up there. So put that on your calendar.
Okay,
Okay.
wonderful. Yes, that is. I did not know that either. Yeah, I have many um friends and colleagues who are associated with the musical instrument museum, but I have not been yet. So
Steinway piano has an exhibit up there that you would like to see. It's a Steinway piano completely disassembled. It takes a lot of room. All the pieces are on the hanging or on a pedestal or whatever, and you see the whole piano in pieces, disassembled like a jigsaw puzzle.
wow, there's so many pieces in a piano. So
And
that's
they have the piano there that John Lennon composed Imagine on. So for keyboardists, it's a great experience. They have, like I said, they have the calliope. We talked about that. And they had some harpsichords that go back to the very, very early period of the instrument. They might have the world's oldest harpsichord. The one that they have is around the date of when they first were originating. So yes, you personally, as a keyboardist, need to go to the Musical Instrument Museum.
for sure.
Igor, a personal tour.
Wonderful, wonderful. Um, just to I this is all super cool, but I want to know about you. Um, and I'm wondering what what draws you to music? What do you like so much about music? You're obviously very, very passionate about many different aspects of music. Why? What is it?
Well, music for me started as a religious experience in fundamentalist music in the Deep South. So it was a cappella singing for the whole congregation. There's no choir and no keyboards, by the way. Everybody sang a cappella in shaped notes, and the shape of the notes indicated the degree of the scale. So it was an easy way to read music without getting into the complication of sharps and flats and lines and spaces. You could read the music just by the shape of the notes. So as a result of that and the spiritual experience that came with it, I'm no longer a fundamentalist. I am Unitarian, but it gave me a sense of community that I love it when I get the Unitarians together, or any group. Here, I live at the Beatitudes campus, which is a retirement community. Every Sunday morning, uh, people show up socially distanced with masks, and we do sing-alongs. And I do mostly uplifting songs like This Little Light of Mine, things that everybody knows that makes you feel better. Kumbaya, We Shall Overcome, Saints Go Marching In, I'll Fly Away. These
I
are all folk
see.
songs, and keyboard players don't necessarily know all of these.
Yes, not all of them. It's very much like a oral tradition.
It is an oral tradition. It's hard to put a piano in your back pocket and go ride your horse.
Exactly. Yes, I would think maybe that's why sometimes pianists tend not to know a lot of songs in their mind because you have to be in a house or a building or something. But that's cool. So it's like,
I have been in the right place at the right time. I already mentioned the fact that I got a scholarship to ASU, but I also, after college, I stumbled in an audition for the New Christian Minstrels and traveled all over the world with that group. So that was my first really big touring experience. And then after that, I worked a place here for 7 years in Arizona called Crazy Ed's Place. And they had a traditional New Orleans type band with a little bit of country music and bluegrass thrown in. And after 7 years of doing that, I established my own group called Igor and the Jazz Cowboys, which the label for that group really would probably be best called Western Swing. Western Swing traditionally is a combination of string players and horn players, which you don't see in the U.S. much, not in an informal group. Usually it's either strings or it's horns, except for mariachi. And the fact that we were sort of like mariachis helped because we got a State Department sponsored tour of Mexico, and toured major cities down there in concert. It was a 7-piece group. The basic core was 3 vocalists, myself on string bass, a guitar player, and a fiddle player. And then we added a drummer and 3 Dixieland horn players, meaning clarinet, trombone, and trumpet. So as a result of that, we could handily play mariachi music. We could handily play Dixieland music. We could handily play some light classic music. We could play ragtime tunes like the theme from The Sting, or Black and White Rag, or Maple Leaf Rag, which you know is piano tunes. We had our own arrangements for that with the 7-piece. And so that was quite an experience to do that. Then at one point, during the time that I worked Crazy Ed's Place, I auditioned for the Gong Show, the National Gong Show with Chuck Barris. I was on it 3 times back in the 80s. And then when they revived it a couple of years ago, I went over an audition and I did 2 seasons of the Gong Show. I'm one of the few people that have been on the Gong Show 5 times.
wow, that's a lot.
Most people wasn't enough. It was a real wacky kind of show, and just real interesting, talented but a little weird musicians. I can't imagine how I got on.
That's so cool. It sounds like
Music has afforded me a great uh, key for a traveling adventure and a people adventure. Um, with the New Christy Minstrels, we had a hit record in Japan based on the American song Chitty Chitty Bang Bang about the musical car. We did it in Japanese. Oh, oh, arashirachi wa chika chika ban ban daisuki, ah, ah, kira ban ban, chika chika ban ban, like that. And it was a hit. So when we played there, we were superstars. And then with the Jazz Cowboys, we had some opportunity to play cruise ships. We played the Caribbean, Alaska. We did the Mexican Riviera. We toured Australia. We were on network television in both Melbourne and also in Sydney. Um, so yes, it's been quite an experience. Now let me talk a little bit about my hometown, which is Muscle Shoals, Alabama. My colleagues down there in the 1960s and 70s recorded some songs with Aretha Franklin, and it exploded for them. They became a thing called the Muscle Shoals Rhythm Section, and informally called the Swampers. And they recorded hundreds, mostly R&B and some pop music from um, household name singers, and made quite a reputation for themselves. So, and my hometown only has 25,000 people, so it's kind of unusual that they became a recording entity, and quite unusual that they happened to be my colleagues as I was growing up down in the Muscle Shoals area. A little footnote on Muscle Shoals: it's in the middle of nowhere. It's half a day or more drive to Nashville, Memphis, or Birmingham. It's on the north bank of the Tennessee River, and it has a distinguished past because of W.C. Handy, which was a blues composer called the father of the blues because he was the first musician to take the blues and successfully put it on sheet music that could be played by other people. And his famous song was St. Louis Blues. So I share a hometown with a composer of St. Louis Blues, which was W.C. Handy.
Wow, I didn't know all of that about Muscle Shoals, Alabama.
So I've seen music in a lot of different cultural contexts. Um, it's
Yes.
been quite the adventure.
It
I've
sounds
had
like
the
it's brought you
most fun I
in.
have is being Santa Claus as a singing musician. Santa Claus is coming to town.
Yes, for sure. It sounds like it's brought you many, many adventures and kind of experiences of a lifetime for sure. Um, I have one final kind of question, and
Okay.
I'm wondering what is your advice to musicians during the pandemic,
My advice or what I've been doing,
or both?
going well, going slightly crazy mostly, as has everybody. What I've done lately is social distance and do the Sunday morning concert that I was talking about. Um, and then this last weekend, I had an unusual opportunity. I was invited. There's a festival in California in Pismo Beach that canceled, but they wanted to do a virtual festival. So they invited a select few musicians and an audience of 25 people only that they selected to do a podcast, a televised podcast. And so I was part of a quartet. We were socially distanced. The audience all had masks on, and we were 20, 30 feet away from the audience. But I was able to go all the way to drive to Pismo Beach and back, a distance of about 1,200 miles round trip to be part of this. Trombone player was from New Orleans, and the piano player was a British ragtime piano player. And then the banjo player was from Morro Beach, California. And the banjo player originally was the music director when he was a teenager for the Three Stooges, who evidently had a partially musical act. So it was a great bunch of guys to get together with and be an all-star. So, and that just happened about 3 days ago. So this is real recent history.
Wow. And what do you think other musicians can be doing now?
I'm sorry.
What do you think other musicians can be doing now during the
What musicians
pandemic?
am I working with now?
What can we be doing to keep making music or to keep
Make
working
music?
together?
Well, I just recorded for the choir director of the Unitarian Church, Benji Messer. I just recorded a series of sing-alongs, which I have been employing for years as Santa Claus to encourage people here again to be part of a community. And in this case, with Santa Claus singing, we heard a little bit Santa Claus coming to town. And I might add that I'm a one-man band too. I play kazoo and slide whistle at the same time I'm playing a corn instrument. And on my feet, I have a cowbell and jingle bells. So I added that, and at some point, maybe you'll have a chance to. Benji will be running that video somewhere, so you can listen to it, and you can see Santa Claus as a one-man band.
Yes, I think you're probably the only one in the world. Probably. That's another certificate that you can you can add to your
It's
collection.
been a it's a musical ride. It's been a great life, and I'm still enjoying it and trying to do the best I can with being quarantined some of the time during the pandemic. But if I stay far enough away from people, I can still sing, and I sing with a very loud voice, so I can get away with being 30, 30, 30 feet away from people, and it's you can't ignore me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Igor. This has been
Well, thank
super
you, Mary, and
interesting.
I am looking forward to being able to perform with you at some point. Piano players are fun. All the instruments I play go well with piano, so hang in there, and I'll be seeing you soon. And as Santa Claus signs off with, remember, kids, if at first you don't succeed, don't try skydiving.
Thank you so much,
Thank
UCP.
you, Mary.